I killed my daughter. Those 4 words haunt Daniel every single night. But on this frozen Christmas Eve, as he watches a desperate mother and her small child shivering in a grocery store parking lot, something impossible happens. The little girl looks up, and for one heart-stopping moment, he sees Emma's face staring back at him. What Daniel doesn't know yet is that stopping his car tonight will unravel a truth so shocking it will destroy everything he thought he knew about that terrible night 3 years ago. Before we begin, please subscribe and hit that notification bell because this story will take you on an emotional journey you won't believe. And comment below what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Trust me, you need to stay until the very end for the twist that changes everything. Now let me tell you what really happened. The police said I was going 43 miles per hour when I hit her. Daniel's hands gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles had gone white. He'd been driving for 2 hours now, nowhere in particular, just driving, because stopping meant going back to that house. That horrible silent house where Emma's room still looked exactly like it did 3 years ago. Pink walls, stuffed animals lined up on the bed, a half-finished drawing of a butterfly on her desk. He'd promised himself he wouldn't do this tonight. Promised he'd stay home, maybe watch a movie, pretend Christmas Eve was just another Thursday. But at 6 o'clock, when the silence became so loud he couldn't breathe, he'd grabbed his keys and run. 43 miles per hour, he whispered to the empty car. They said she died instantly. They said that like it was supposed to make me feel better. The streets were almost empty now. Most people were home with their families wrapping last-minute gifts, drinking eggnog, watching their kids' faces light up with anticipation. Daniel turned down Main Street past the hardware store where he used to take Emma to pick out paint colors for her room. Past the library where they'd spent every Saturday morning. Past the ice cream shop where she'd always ordered strawberry with rainbow sprinkles. He was crying now, but he didn't bother wiping the tears away. What was the point? His phone buzzed. A text from his sister Margaret. "Danny, please come over tonight. You shouldn't be alone on Christmas Eve." He didn't respond. Margaret meant well, but she didn't understand. She had 3 healthy kids and a husband who adored her. She had Christmas morning chaos and sticky fingers and toy parts scattered across her living room floor. She had everything Daniel had lost. The light ahead turned red. Daniel stopped staring blankly at the intersection where it happened. Right here, this exact spot. March 15th, 2022, 7:43 p.m. He'd been texting his boss about a deadline. Just a quick message, he'd thought. Just 5 seconds with his eyes off the road. But 5 seconds was all it took. Emma had been riding her new bike, the purple one with the white basket and streamers on the handlebars. She'd just gotten the training wheels off. She was so proud, so excited to show him she could ride all by herself. She'd been staying at her grandmother's house that week while Daniel worked late on a project. He was driving over to pick her up when she'd decided to surprise him by riding toward his car. She'd come around the corner too fast. He'd looked up from his phone too late. The sound of the impact, the way her small body had crumpled against the hood of his car, those images lived behind his eyelids every time he closed his eyes. The light turned green. Daniel didn't move. A car honked behind him. He pressed the accelerator slowly, mechanically, continuing his aimless journey through the cold December night. He found himself driving past the grocery store on Elm Street, the one that had closed down 6 months ago. The parking lot was dark except for one flickering streetlight near the entrance. Daniel almost didn't see them. But then the light caught the edge of a cardboard sign and he saw her. A woman, maybe late 20s, early 30s, sitting on the cold concrete with a little girl pressed against her side. Both of them wrapped in a thin blanket that clearly wasn't warm enough for a night like this. The woman's face was gaunt, exhausted. Her eyes hollow with the kind of desperation Daniel recognized in his own mirror. She held a cardboard sign with shaky handwriting. "Need food for my child. Anything helps. God bless." Daniel's foot moved toward the brake automatically, but his mind screamed at him to keep driving. He didn't have anything left to give. He was a shell of a man barely keeping himself alive. What could he possibly offer them? But then the little girl lifted her head, and Daniel's heart stopped. For just a second, less than a second, he saw Emma. Same dark curly hair, same small chin, same way of tilting her head when she looked at something. The resemblance was so striking, so impossible, that Daniel actually gasped out loud. He pulled over before he could talk himself out of it. The woman noticed his car immediately, her body tensing like a trapped animal. She pulled her daughter closer, and Daniel could see her calculating whether they should run. He understood that reaction. The world wasn't kind to desperate women and children. He rolled down his window, leaving the engine running. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said, his voice rough from crying. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" The woman's eyes darted to his face, searching for danger. "We're fine," she said quickly. Too quickly. Her voice shook. "Just down on our luck. If you have any spare change." "When did you last eat?" Daniel interrupted. "You or your daughter?" The woman's face crumbled slightly before she caught herself. "Yesterday morning. But we're managing. There's a diner about 3 blocks from here," Daniel said. "It's still open on Christmas Eve. Let me buy you both dinner, a real meal, something hot." "We don't need—" the woman started, but the little girl interrupted. "Mama, I'm so hungry," she whispered. Her voice was tiny, defeated. "My tummy hurts." Daniel's chest constricted. How many times had Emma said those exact words? How many times had he promised her pancakes for dinner or made silly faces while cooking her favorite pasta? "Please," he said, looking directly at the woman. "My name is Daniel. I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to help. Just dinner, that's all." The woman stared at him for a long moment. Daniel could see her weighing her options, calculating risks, deciding whether trusting a stranger was worth the gamble. Finally, slowly, she nodded. "My name is Sarah," she said quietly. "This is Sophie." "Hi, Sophie," Daniel said, trying to smile at the little girl. She looked about 6 years old, Emma's age when she died. "Do you like pancakes?" Sophie's eyes widened. "With syrup. With as much syrup as you want." Sarah stood up carefully, gathering their few belongings into a worn backpack. Daniel noticed she moved like someone in pain, favoring her left side. There was a fading bruise on her cheekbone, partially hidden by her hair. They got into his car, Sarah clutching Sophie on her lap in the front seat. Daniel knew it wasn't safe, but he also knew people without car seats often didn't have better options. "Buckle up," he said gently, and Sarah fumbled with the seatbelt, managing to secure it around both of them. The diner was called Rosie's, and it had been there since Daniel was a kid. The same red vinyl booths, the same checkered floor, the same smell of coffee and bacon grease. The waitress Betty, who'd been working there for 30 years, gave Daniel a sympathetic look when he walked in with Sarah and Sophie. Everyone in town knew what had happened to Emma. Everyone had attended the funeral. Everyone walked on eggshells around him. "Merry Christmas, Danny," Betty said softly. "You want your usual corner booth? Please." They slid into the booth. Sophie's eyes huge as she took in the bright lights and warm interior. Sarah kept her head down, clearly uncomfortable being in public, being seen. Daniel noticed she was shaking, and not just from the cold. "Order whatever you want," Daniel said, handing them both menus. "Seriously, anything." Sophie looked at her mother for permission. Sarah nodded, tears suddenly streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," Sarah whispered, wiping her eyes quickly. "I'm sorry. We just haven't. It's been so long since anyone was kind to us." "Don't apologize," Daniel said. His own throat was tight. "Please, don't apologize." Betty came over and Sophie ordered pancakes with extra syrup and a chocolate milk. Sarah ordered soup and a grilled cheese, her voice barely audible. Daniel ordered coffee he wouldn't drink and asked Betty to bring out some extra sides, fries, fruit, whatever the kitchen had ready. While they waited, Daniel found himself studying Sophie. Now that he saw her up close, she didn't actually look that much like Emma. Her eyes were green instead of brown. Her face was rounder, but there was something in her expression, something in the way she looked at her mother with such complete trust, despite their terrible circumstances, that reminded him painfully of his daughter. "How long have you been out there?" Daniel asked Sarah quietly. Sarah's hand tightened around her water glass. 3 days. We were staying at a shelter, but they had a maximum stay policy. We've been looking for somewhere else, but everything's closed for the holidays and—" She trailed off, her jaw clenching. "We're figuring it out." "Where's Sophie's father?" Sarah's entire body went rigid. For a moment, Daniel thought she wouldn't answer. Then she spoke, her voice flat and dead. "Texas. Hopefully still in Texas." The way she said it told Daniel everything he needed to know. The bruise on her face, the fear in her movements, the way she'd tensed when his car first pulled up. "You're running from him," Daniel said. It wasn't a question. Sarah looked up sharply, meeting his eyes for the first time. "Yes, and if you're going to call the police or tell me I should go back or that I'm being dramatic—" "I'm not going to do any of that," Daniel said firmly. "I'm glad you got away. I'm glad you're keeping Sophie safe." Sarah's eyes filled with tears again. "We had $73 when we left. I spent the last of it 2 days ago on gas to get here. I thought maybe we could start over in a smaller town somewhere Marcus would never think to look for us. But I can't get a job without an address, and I can't get an address without money for first and last month's rent, and we've been sleeping in our car, but it's getting so cold, and Sophie keeps crying at night, and I don't know what to do anymore." The words tumbled out in a desperate rush like a dam breaking. Sophie looked up at her mother with worried eyes. "It's okay, Mama," the little girl whispered. "I'm not cold." She was clearly lying. Her lips had been blue when Daniel first saw her. The food arrived, and for several minutes there was only the sound of eating. Sophie devoured her pancakes, with single-minded intensity syrup covering her face and hands. Sarah ate more slowly, carefully, like someone who'd gone hungry enough times to savor every bite. Daniel watched them and felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been sealed shut for 3 years. When Sophie finished, she looked up at Daniel with syrup-sticky cheeks and said, "Thank you, mister. This was the best dinner ever." "You're welcome, sweetheart," Daniel said, and his voice broke on the last word. Betty brought over a piece of apple pie with 2 forks. "On the house," she said, winking at Sophie, "for the Christmas spirit." After they finished eating, Daniel paid the bill and left Betty a $100 tip. Then he stood up and faced Sarah, his heart pounding. "I have a guest room," he heard himself say. "You and Sophie can stay there tonight. It's warm. It's safe. Tomorrow we can figure out next steps. But tonight, you need to sleep somewhere that isn't a car." Sarah's face went pale. We couldn't possibly—" "I'm not asking for anything," Daniel said quickly. "I'm not expecting anything. I just have a room that's empty, and a house that's too big for one person, and it's Christmas Eve, and no child should be sleeping in a car on Christmas Eve." Sarah stared at him, clearly torn between desperate need and self-preservation instinct. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this for strangers?" Daniel looked down at Sophie, who was watching him with those trusting eyes, and he thought about Emma, about all the nights he'd wished someone could have saved her, about all the ways he'd failed. "Because I couldn't save my daughter," he said quietly. "But maybe I can help yours." Sarah's face crumbled. She sobbed once, pressing her hand over her mouth to hold it in. Then she nodded. They drove back to Daniel's house in silence. It was a small 2-story colonial on a quiet street, with Christmas lights on all the neighboring houses, except his. The darkness of his home felt accusatory next to all that cheerful illumination. Inside, Daniel turned on lights and turned up the heat. The house was clean, but lifeless. No decorations, no personal touches. Nothing that indicated anyone actually lived here instead of just existed. "The guest room is upstairs, first door on the right," Daniel said. "There are clean towels in the bathroom. Help yourself to anything you need." Sarah clutched Sophie's hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know how to thank you enough." Don't, Daniel said. Just sleep. Rest. Be safe tonight. He showed them upstairs, pointed out the bathroom, made sure they had everything they needed. Sophie was practically asleep on her feet, swaying against her mother's leg. As Sarah started to close the bedroom door, she paused. Daniel. He turned back. Your daughter, Sarah said softly. What was her name? Emma, Daniel said. Her name was Emma. I'm sorry for your loss, Sarah said, and the sincerity in her voice made Daniel's eyes burn. He nodded, not trusting himself to speak, and went back downstairs. That night, lying in his own bed, Daniel heard sounds he hadn't heard in 3 years. The creak of footsteps above him, water running in the upstairs bathroom, the soft murmur of a mother's voice soothing her child to sleep. His house, which had been a tomb for so long, suddenly felt almost alive again. And for the first time since Emma died, Daniel closed his eyes without seeing the accident. Instead, he saw Sophie's syrup-covered smile and Sarah's grateful tears, and he thought maybe, just maybe, there was still some small purpose left in his ruined life. He didn't know yet how wrong he was. He didn't know yet that saving Sarah and Sophie would lead him to discover a truth about Emma's death that would destroy everything. He didn't know that the accident 3 years ago wasn't actually an accident at all, but he was about to find out. Daniel woke to a sound he thought he'd never hear again in his house. Laughter. A child's laughter, bright and clear, drifting down from upstairs. For a disorienting moment, still caught between sleep and consciousness, he thought it was Emma. His heart lurched with joy before reality crashed back down. Emma was dead. Emma had been dead for 3 years. The laughter belonged to Sophie. He lay there for a moment listening. The sound was so foreign in this house, so unexpected, that it almost hurt. Then he heard footsteps on the stairs, lighter than Sarah's. Sophie was coming down. Daniel sat up quickly, running a hand through his hair. He'd fallen asleep in his clothes from yesterday, hadn't even bothered to change. He made it to the bedroom door just as Sophie reached the bottom of the staircase. She froze when she saw him, her eyes going wide with uncertainty. In the morning light streaming through the windows, Daniel could see how thin she was. Her clothes hung loose on her small frame, and there were dark circles under her eyes that no 6-year-old should have. Good morning, Daniel said softly, trying to make his voice gentle. Did you sleep okay? Sophie nodded slowly. The bed was really soft. Mama said it was the softest bed she ever slept in. She paused, then added in a whisper, Are you still nice today? The question hit Daniel like a punch to the chest. This child had learned that adults could be nice one day and dangerous the next. That kindness might be a trap. I'm still nice today, Daniel said. I promise. Are you hungry? I can make breakfast. We don't want to be trouble, Sophie said quickly, and it sounded like something she'd been taught to say. Mama says we're leaving soon. You're not trouble at all, Daniel said. And you don't have to leave yet. It's Christmas morning. You should at least have breakfast first. Sophie's face lit up. It's Christmas. I forgot it was Christmas. Sarah appeared at the top of the stairs, her hair damp from a shower. She looked better than last night, less gaunt somehow, but there was still a wariness in her eyes that Daniel recognized. She'd spent too long being afraid to let her guard down completely. Sophie, don't bother Mr. Daniel, Sarah said, coming down the stairs. We need to get our things together. Please, Daniel said. Stay for breakfast. It's the least I can do. Sarah hesitated, clearly torn. Daniel could see her calculating again, weighing risks and benefits. Finally, she nodded. Just breakfast. Then we'll get out of your hair. Daniel led them to the kitchen, acutely aware of how empty it felt. The refrigerator had the basics: eggs, milk, bread, some cheese. He'd stopped really cooking after Emma died. Most nights he just ate whatever was easiest, standing over the sink, barely tasting it. How about pancakes? He suggested, looking at Sophie. I remember someone really liked pancakes last night. Sophie's face broke into a genuine smile. With syrup. With syrup, Daniel confirmed. While he cooked, Sarah sat at the kitchen table with Sophie on her lap, both of them quiet and watchful. Daniel could feel their eyes on him as he moved around the kitchen mixing batter, heating the griddle. It had been so long since he'd cooked for anyone but himself that his hands almost remembered automatically what to do. "How long have you lived here?" Sarah asked suddenly. 12 years, Daniel said. "My wife and I bought it right after Emma was born. We thought we'd fill it with kids, have a big family." He flipped a pancake, not looking at them. "Didn't work out that way." "Your wife," Sarah said carefully. "Is she—" "She left 2 years ago," Daniel said flatly. "A year after Emma died. Said she couldn't look at me anymore without seeing the accident. Couldn't stay in this house with all the memories. She moved back to California to be near her sister. We're divorced now." The words came out matter-of-fact, but Daniel felt the old pain underneath them. Lisa had blamed him completely for Emma's death. She was right to. But it still hurt when she'd packed her bags and walked away, leaving him alone with his guilt. "I'm sorry," Sarah said quietly. "Don't be. She needed to leave. I understand that." Daniel plated the pancakes and brought them to the table. "I'm the one who should be sorry. This isn't exactly a cheerful Christmas morning conversation." Sophie reached for a pancake immediately, and Sarah gently caught her hand. "What do we say?" "Thank you," Sophie said to Daniel. Then she bowed her head. "Thank you, God, for this food, and for Mr. Daniel being nice to us." "Amen." Something twisted in Daniel's chest. When was the last time anyone had prayed in this house? When was the last time he'd even thought about being grateful for anything? They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes. Then Sophie looked up at Daniel with syrup on her chin and said, "Do you have any kids now?" "Sophie?" Sarah said sharply. "That's not appropriate." "It's okay," Daniel said, even though it wasn't. "No, sweetie. It's just me here now." "That's sad," Sophie said with a child's blunt honesty. "Houses should have kids in them. Kids make houses happy." Daniel had to look away, blinking rapidly. "You're absolutely right. They do." After breakfast, Sarah insisted on doing the dishes. Daniel tried to protest, but she was firm. "You've done so much for us already," she said. "Please let me do something." While Sarah washed dishes and Sophie explored the living room, cautiously touching things gently, like she was afraid they'd break. Daniel found himself watching them. There was something calming about their presence, something that made the house feel less like a mausoleum and more like a home. His phone rang. Margaret again. Daniel hesitated, then answered. "Danny, finally. I've been calling since last night. Where have you been?" "I'm fine, Maggie. I'm at home." "Alone." His sister's voice was heavy with concern. Daniel looked at Sarah washing dishes, at Sophie, examining the books on his shelf. "Actually, no. I have guests." There was a shocked pause. "Guests? Danny, what do you mean, guests? Who?" "It's a long story," Daniel said. "I'll explain later, but I'm okay. Really. Merry Christmas, Maggie." "Danny, wait." He hung up. He'd deal with his sister's questions later. Sarah dried her hands on a dish towel and turned to face him. "We should really go. You've been more than kind, but we've imposed enough." "Where will you go?" Daniel asked directly. Sarah's face tightened. "We'll figure something out. There's got to be a church or a shelter somewhere that's open. We'll be fine." On Christmas Day, Sarah, everything's closed, and it's going to be even colder tonight than last night. The weather report said the temperature's dropping below freezing. "We've managed before," Sarah said, but her voice wavered. "Mama," Sophie said quietly from the living room. "Can we stay? Please, it's warm here." Sarah closed her eyes. Daniel could see the battle happening behind her face. Pride versus desperation, fear versus hope. "Just through the holiday," Daniel heard himself say. A few days. Until you can find something more permanent. I have the space. The room's just sitting empty anyway." "Why are you doing this?" Sarah asked, and there were tears in her eyes now. "Why are you helping us? You don't know us. We could be anyone. We could rob you or hurt you or—" "I know what it's like to be alone," Daniel said simply. "I know what it's like to lose everything. And I know what it's like to wish someone had been there to help when you needed it most." Sarah wiped her eyes roughly. "We can't pay you. I don't have any money. I can't give you anything." "I'm not asking for payment," Daniel said. "I'm asking for company. This house has been too quiet for too long." Sarah stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded just barely. "Through New Year's," she said. "Just until I can get a job and save enough for a deposit somewhere. That's it." "Through New Year's," Daniel agreed. That's how it started. That's how Sarah and Sophie moved into Daniel's life, into the empty spaces he'd been carrying around for 3 years. And at first it was awkward. They moved around each other carefully, like strangers sharing an elevator. Sarah kept apologizing for everything, for using too much hot water, for Sophie being too loud, for existing in his space. Daniel kept insisting it was fine, that they weren't any trouble, even though having them there felt strange and uncomfortable, and also somehow necessary. On the second day, Daniel found Sarah sitting at the kitchen table with the classified ads spread out in front of her, a pen in her hand, making careful notes. "What are you looking for?" he asked. "Jobs. Anything. Waitressing, cleaning, retail. I'm not picky. I just need something fast." She looked up at him. "Is there a library nearby where I can use a computer? I need to fill out online applications." "You can use mine," Daniel said. "It's in the study, and I can drive you to interviews when you need it." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Again. She seemed to cry at every small kindness, like she'd forgotten what it felt like to be treated like a human being. "Why do you keep crying?" Sophie asked from the doorway, where she'd been playing with a deck of cards Daniel had found for her. "Because people are being nice to us, baby," Sarah said, wiping her eyes. "Sometimes that makes Mama emotional." "Were people mean to us before?" Sophie asked innocently. Sarah's face went pale. "Sometimes," she said carefully. "But we're safe now. We're going to be okay." Daniel wanted to ask about Marcus, about what had happened in Texas, but he could see Sarah wasn't ready to talk about it. So instead, he showed her his computer and left her to fill out applications, while he and Sophie played cards in the living room. Sophie was surprisingly good at Go Fish. She beat Daniel 3 times in a row, giggling each time she won. "You're really good at this," Daniel told her. "Mama taught me," Sophie said proudly. "We played a lot in the car. It helped when I was scared." "What were you scared of?" Sophie's face got serious. "The man, the one Mama said we had to run away from. He was really mean to Mama. He made her cry a lot, and sometimes he yelled so loud that I had to hide in my room." Daniel's chest tightened. "Your daddy?" Sophie nodded. "But Mama says we don't call him that anymore. She says we're safe now and he can't find us." She looked up at Daniel with those trusting eyes. "You won't tell him where we are, right?" "Never," Daniel promised. "I would never do that." "Good, because I like it here. Your house is nice, and you're nice. You remind me of my grandpa before he died. He was nice too." Something in Daniel's chest cracked a little wider. He was only 38 years old, but he felt ancient. Felt like grief had aged him decades in just 3 years. That night, after Sarah put Sophie to bed, she came downstairs and found Daniel sitting in the dark living room, staring at nothing. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. "I should be asking you that," Daniel said. Sarah sat down on the other end of the couch, keeping a careful distance between them. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." "I was a nurse," Sarah said. "Before everything happened, I worked in pediatrics. I loved it. I was good at it. But when I met Marcus, he didn't like me working. Said I should be home taking care of the house, taking care of Sophie. At first I thought he was just traditional, old-fashioned. But then he started getting angry when I mentioned maybe going back to work, and the anger turned into yelling, and the yelling turned into... She touched her cheekbone where the bruise had been. Other things. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I stayed too long. Sarah continued, her voice hollow. I kept thinking he'd change. That if I just tried harder, was better, was quieter, was more perfect, he'd go back to being the man I thought I married. But that man never existed. I made him up in my head. The real Marcus was always there under the surface. I just didn't want to see it. How did you get away? He broke Sophie's arm, Sarah said flatly. She spilled juice on his laptop and he grabbed her so hard he fractured her wrist. That's when I knew we had to go. Because I could take it when he hurt me, but I couldn't let him hurt my baby. So I waited until he went to work one day, packed everything I could fit in my car, and drove. I didn't know where we were going. I just drove east, away from him, away from Texas, away from everything. Daniel thought about his own daughter, about the accident, about all the ways we fail to protect the people we love. You saved her, he said quietly. You did the right thing. Did I? Sarah laughed bitterly. Look at us, homeless, broke, sleeping in a stranger's house because I have nowhere else to go. Some mother I am. You're a good mother, Daniel said firmly. You got her out. You kept her safe. That's what matters. Sarah looked at him, really looked at him for the first time since they'd met. What happened to your daughter? She asked softly. If you don't mind me asking. And suddenly Daniel was talking. Words pouring out that he hadn't spoken to anyone in 3 years. About the text message, about the bike, about Emma's small body flying through the air, about the hospital, about holding his daughter's hand as the machines stopped beeping, about Lisa's face blank with shock, then twisted with rage, about the divorce, about the guilt that ate him alive every single day. I killed her, Daniel said, his voice breaking. I killed my own daughter because I couldn't wait 5 seconds to check my phone, and I have to live with that forever. Every day I wake up and remember what I did. Every night I go to sleep and dream about it. There's no escape. There's no forgiveness. There's just this endless punishment that I deserve. Sarah was crying now too. It was an accident, she whispered. It was negligence, Daniel corrected. It was carelessness. It was me choosing my job over my daughter's life. You didn't choose that. You made a mistake. A horrible, tragic mistake. But it was still a mistake. Daniel shook his head. I don't deserve forgiveness. I don't deserve peace. I don't deserve to be happy ever again. Is that why you live like this? Sarah gestured around the dark, empty house. Is that why you're punishing yourself? Because you think you don't deserve to live? Daniel couldn't answer, because she was right. He'd been killing himself slowly for 3 years, not eating properly, not sleeping, not taking care of himself, hoping maybe if he suffered enough it would somehow balance the scales. Daniel, Sarah said, and her voice was gentle but firm. Emma wouldn't want this for you. No child would want their parent to destroy themselves with guilt. You didn't know Emma, Daniel said harshly. You don't know what she'd want. You're right, I didn't. But I know Sophie. And I know if something happened to me, I'd want her to live. Really live. Not just exist in grief and guilt. I'd want her to find joy again, to find purpose again, to find love again. Because that's what parents want for their children. Always. Daniel put his face in his hands. His whole body was shaking with sobs he'd been holding back for years. Sarah moved closer, hesitated, then put a hand on his shoulder. Just that simple touch, that human connection, broke something loose inside him. They sat there in the dark for a long time, two broken people holding each other up. The next morning, everything changed. Daniel was making coffee when his phone rang. An unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Is this Daniel Thompson? A woman's voice asked. Yes, who's this? My name is Detective Rebecca Martinez with the County Police Department. I'm calling about a cold case I've been reviewing. The death of Emma Thompson in March of 2022. I need to ask you some questions. Daniel's blood went cold. I already gave my statement 3 years ago, multiple times. What else could you possibly need? New evidence has come to light, Detective Martinez said carefully. Evidence that suggests the accident might not have been exactly what we thought. Can you come down to the station this afternoon? What kind of evidence? Daniel demanded. His hand was shaking so hard he almost dropped the phone. I'd rather discuss this in person. Can you come in around 2 o'clock? Tell me now. What evidence? What are you talking about? There was a long pause. Then Detective Martinez said quietly, Mr. Thompson, we have reason to believe someone tampered with the brakes on your car the day of the accident. We don't think you hit Emma because you were distracted. We think someone made sure you couldn't stop. The world tilted sideways. Daniel gripped the counter to keep from falling. What? He whispered. What did you just say? 2 o'clock, Mr. Thompson. We need you to come in. We need to talk about who might have wanted to hurt you or your daughter. The line went dead. Daniel stood frozen in his kitchen, the phone still pressed to his ear, his mind refusing to process what he'd just heard. Tampered brakes. Not an accident. Someone made sure you couldn't stop. Daniel! Sarah's voice came from behind him. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Daniel turned to face her slowly. Emma, he said. His voice didn't sound like his own. My daughter. They're saying someone killed her. They're saying it wasn't my fault. They're saying someone murdered my little girl. And then his legs gave out, and he collapsed to the floor. Sarah catching him just before his head hit the tile, both of them sinking down together, as Daniel finally let himself scream. Sarah held Daniel as he shook, his entire body racked with sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than grief. This was something rawer, something that had been locked away for 3 years, and was now exploding out of him all at once. I didn't kill her, he kept saying over and over. I didn't kill her. Oh God, Sarah, I didn't kill her. I know, Sarah whispered, even though she didn't understand yet. I know, it's okay. Just breathe. But it wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. Daniel's mind was spinning, racing through memories, reconstructing everything he thought he knew about that day. The text message, the way his car hadn't stopped when he slammed on the brakes, the horrible, endless moment of watching Emma get closer and closer, and being completely unable to stop. He'd thought it was his fault. The police had thought it was his fault. Lisa had thought it was his fault. The entire town had thought it was his fault. And he'd carried that guilt like a stone around his neck for 3 years, drowning in it, suffocating under the weight of it. But someone had tampered with his brakes. Someone had made sure he couldn't stop. Someone had murdered his daughter. Daniel, talk to me, Sarah said, pulling back to look at his face. What did that phone call say? What's happening? Daniel tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. His throat was closed. His chest was too tight. He couldn't breathe. He was having a panic attack, he realized distantly. His first one since the months right after Emma died. Daniel, look at me. Look at me. Sarah grabbed his face between her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. Breathe with me. In through your nose. Out through your mouth. Come on. With me. She breathed slowly, exaggeratedly, and Daniel tried to match her. In, out, in, out. Gradually, slowly, the vice around his chest loosened. The room stopped spinning. His vision cleared. Good, Sarah said. Good. Now tell me what happened. The police, Daniel managed. They called. They said new evidence. They said someone tampered with my brakes. They said Emma's death wasn't an accident. Someone killed her, Sarah. Someone murdered my daughter and let me think it was my fault for 3 years. Sarah's face went pale. Oh my God, Daniel. Are you sure? Are you sure that's what they said? I have to go to the station at 2 o'clock, Daniel said. He was shaking again, but differently now. With rage. With a fury so intense it scared him. They want to ask me who might have wanted to hurt me or Emma. Who would do this? Who would kill a child? Mama! Sophie's small voice came from the doorway. Both adults turned to see her standing there in her pajamas, clutching the stuffed rabbit Daniel had found for her in Emma's old room. Why is Mr. Daniel crying? Is he sad? Sarah stood quickly, moving to her daughter. Mr. Daniel just got some hard news, baby. He's going to be okay. Why don't you go upstairs and get dressed? I'll make you breakfast in a minute. But Mama... Now, Sophie, please. Something in Sarah's tone made Sophie obey without argument. She scurried back upstairs and Sarah turned to Daniel. You need to call someone, she said. A family member, a friend. You can't process this alone. Margaret, Daniel said numbly. My sister. I should call Margaret. He did, his fingers barely able to work the phone. Margaret answered on the first ring. Danny, what's wrong? You sound terrible. Maggie, Daniel said, and his voice broke. They're saying someone killed Emma. They're saying it wasn't my fault. They're saying someone murdered her. The line went silent for so long, Daniel thought the call had dropped. Then Margaret screamed. Not words, just a raw sound of anguish and rage. When she spoke again, she was crying. What? What are you talking about? Who told you this? Daniel explained about the detective's call, about the tampered brakes, about having to go to the station. Margaret was sobbing so hard she could barely speak. I'm coming over, she said. Right now. Don't go anywhere. Don't do anything. I'm coming. She hung up. Daniel sat on the kitchen floor staring at nothing. Sarah sat beside him, not touching him, but close enough that he could feel her presence. For 3 years, Daniel said quietly, I've wanted to die. Every single day I've thought about joining Emma, about ending this nightmare. The only thing that stopped me was knowing it would hurt Maggie. That she'd already lost her niece and couldn't lose her brother too. But I wanted to. God, Sarah, I wanted to so badly. I know, Sarah said softly. And now they're telling me I didn't do it. That all this guilt, all this suffering, all this self-destruction was for nothing. Someone else killed her, and I've been punishing myself for their crime. Who would do this? Sarah asked. Who would want to hurt your daughter? Daniel shook his head. I don't know. I can't think. I can't process this. It doesn't make sense. Emma was 6 years old. 6. Who kills a 6-year-old? Someone who wanted to hurt you, Sarah said, and her voice was grim. Someone who knew the best way to destroy you was to take your child. The thought made Daniel want to vomit. But before he could respond, the front door burst open and Margaret rushed in. She must have broken every speed limit getting there. She was still in her pajamas under her coat, her hair wild, her face red and swollen from crying. Danny! She sobbed, running to him. She dropped to her knees beside him and pulled him into a fierce hug. Oh God, Danny! Oh God! They held each other and cried while Sarah quietly excused herself upstairs to give them privacy. I need to know who did this, Margaret said when she could finally speak. I need to know who killed my Emma, because I'm going to destroy them. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to make them pay. Maggie. Don't tell me to calm down. Don't tell me to let the police handle it. Someone murdered our baby girl and let you suffer for it. Let you hate yourself for it. Let you nearly destroy yourself over it. I want blood, Danny. I want justice. Daniel had never heard his sister sound like that. Margaret was gentle, soft-spoken, the family peacemaker. But right now, she sounded capable of murder herself. The detective said they'd found new evidence, Daniel said. They must know something. They must have a lead. Then we go to that station and we demand answers, Margaret said fiercely. Right now. We're not waiting until 2 o'clock. We're going right now. Sarah came back downstairs, now dressed with Sophie trailing behind her. I couldn't help but overhear, she said apologetically. Daniel, you shouldn't drive. Not like this. Let me take you. You don't have to do that, Daniel said. Yes, I do, Sarah said firmly. You've helped me. Now let me help you. Sophie and I will wait in the car while you talk to the police. But you're not doing this alone. Margaret looked at Sarah with obvious confusion. Who are you? A friend, Sarah said simply. A new friend. There wasn't time to explain more. They piled into Daniel's car, Margaret in the front passenger seat, Sophie and Daniel in the back. Sarah drove carefully through town toward the police station, while Margaret called their parents to tell them the news. Daniel could hear his mother wailing through the phone. At the station, Margaret practically dragged Daniel inside, demanding to see Detective Martinez immediately. The desk sergeant tried to tell them they needed an appointment, but Margaret wasn't having it. My brother just found out someone murdered his daughter 3 years ago, and you made him wait 3 years to tell him. Margaret said, her voice shaking with fury. So no, we're not making an appointment. We're seeing Detective Martinez right now. Something in her tone must have gotten through because the sergeant picked up his phone and made a call. 5 minutes later, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and graying hair came out to meet them. Mr. Thompson, she asked, looking at Daniel. I'm Detective Martinez. I wasn't expecting you until this afternoon. We're here now, Margaret said before Daniel could speak. Tell us what you know. Tell us everything. Detective Martinez looked at Margaret, then back at Daniel. Is this your attorney? She's my sister, Daniel said. She deserves to hear this too. Emma was her niece. Detective Martinez nodded slowly. Let's go somewhere private. She led them to a small conference room and closed the door. They all sat down, Daniel's hands trembling on the table in front of him. First, I want to say how sorry I am, Detective Martinez began. For your loss and for how long it's taken us to uncover this. The original investigation was thorough, but we had no reason to suspect foul play at the time. The evidence pointed to distracted driving. Your phone records showed you'd received a text message seconds before the accident. Witnesses said you seemed to be looking down. Everything lined up with a tragic but straightforward accident. But it wasn't, Daniel said hoarsely. You said someone tampered with my brakes. We're now fairly certain of that, yes, Detective Martinez said. 3 days ago, we received an anonymous tip. Someone called in and said we needed to re-examine your vehicle. We'd already crushed it years ago, so we couldn't do that. But the tip gave us enough reason to request the original mechanic's reports and photos from the crash site. We brought in a forensic mechanic to review everything. She pulled out a folder and opened it, showing them photos Daniel had never seen before. Close-ups of his car's undercarriage, twisted metal, and leaked fluids. Your brake lines were cut, Detective Martinez said, pointing to one of the photos. Not completely severed, which would have been immediately obvious, but partially cut in a way that would cause them to fail under sustained pressure. You would have noticed something was wrong when you tried to stop, but by then, it would have been too late. The fluid would have leaked out too quickly for the brakes to engage. Daniel stared at the photo, not fully comprehending what he was seeing. Someone cut my brake lines. Yes, and they did it professionally. This wasn't some random act of vandalism. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. They knew how to make it look like a tragic accident. But why? Margaret demanded. Why would anyone do this to a child? To Emma? That's what we need to figure out, Detective Martinez said, looking directly at Daniel. Mr. Thompson, I need you to think very carefully. In the weeks and months before the accident, did you have any conflicts with anyone? Any arguments? Anyone who might have been angry with you or wanted to hurt you? Daniel's mind raced backward, trying to remember. I don't know. I worked in software development. It was a boring office job. I didn't have enemies. I didn't have drama. I just went to work and came home to my family. What about your wife Lisa, correct? Were there any issues in your marriage? No, I mean, we had normal couple stuff. Disagreements about money sometimes, or about how to parent Emma, but nothing serious, nothing that would lead to... He couldn't even finish the sentence. Did Lisa ever express anger about your job? About how much time you spent working? Sometimes, Daniel admitted. She thought I worked too much, traveled too much for conferences. But she wasn't angry enough to kill our daughter. That's insane. I have to ask these questions, Detective Martinez said gently. What about after the accident? How did Lisa react? She blamed me, Daniel said flatly. She said it was my fault. She said I killed Emma with my carelessness. She divorced me and moved to California. We haven't spoken in over a year. Detective Martinez made notes. Where was Lisa the day of the accident? At work. She was a real estate agent. She had showings all day. Why are you asking about Lisa? You think she did this? I'm not ruling anyone out, Detective Martinez said. What about other family members, friends, co-workers? Nobody, Daniel insisted. Nobody would do this. You're looking in the wrong place. Maybe it was random. Maybe someone just wanted to hurt anybody, and I happened to be the target. Brake tampering isn't random, Detective Martinez said. It requires access to your vehicle knowledge of how to disable the brakes and time to do it without being noticed. Where was your car parked the night before the accident? In my driveway at home. And the day of the accident, before you left to pick up Emma? I drove to the office that morning, worked until about 7, then drove straight to my mother-in-law's house to get Emma. That's when... His voice broke. That's when it happened. So someone had access to your car, either at your home or at your workplace, Detective Martinez said. Who else had keys to your car? Just Lisa, and we kept a spare set in the kitchen drawer. Did you notice anything unusual that day? Anything out of place? Daniel tried to remember, but it was so long ago, and he'd been so focused on work deadlines. I don't think so. It was just a normal day, until it wasn't. Margaret had been quiet, but now she spoke up. What about the anonymous tip? Who called it in? Why now after 3 years? We don't know, Detective Martinez admitted. The call came from a burner phone, untraceable. But whoever called knew specific details about the brake tampering that weren't public knowledge. They knew what to tell us to look for. So someone knows who did this, Margaret said. Someone has known all along and only now decided to come forward. Why? What changed? That's what we need to find out, Detective Martinez said. She looked at Daniel sympathetically. I know this is overwhelming. I know you're processing a lot right now, but I need you to really think. Make a list of everyone who had access to your car, everyone who might have had a reason to hurt you, everyone who was in your life at that time. We're going to investigate all of them. Daniel nodded numbly. His phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. How are you holding up? We're here when you're ready. Can I go? Daniel asked. I need to get out of here. I need to think. Of course. But Mr. Thompson, please be careful. Whoever did this is still out there. And now that we're investigating, they might get nervous. Watch your back. The word sent a chill down Daniel's spine. He'd been so focused on the revelation about Emma's death being murder that he hadn't thought about the killer still being free, still being out there, possibly still being a threat. Margaret drove them back to Daniel's house. Sarah and Sophie were waiting on the porch, Sophie drawing with chalk on the concrete, while Sarah watched her with worried eyes. How did it go? Sarah asked as they approached. Someone murdered my daughter, and we have no idea who, Margaret said bluntly. That's how it went. Sarah's face went white. She looked at Daniel, who could only shake his head. He had no words left. Inside, Margaret made coffee, while Daniel sat at the kitchen table in silence. Sophie came in and climbed onto his lap without asking, like she sensed he needed comfort. Daniel put his arms around her, automatically holding her small body close, and something inside him broke all over again. This was what Emma had felt like. This warm weight in his arms. This trust. This innocent love. I'm going to kill them, Margaret said, suddenly slamming the coffee pot down on the counter. Whoever did this, I'm going to find them and I'm going to kill them with my bare hands. Maggie, Daniel said weakly. Don't Maggie me. They took our Emma. They let you suffer for 3 years thinking you killed her. They deserve to die. And what good would that do? Daniel asked. His voice sounded dead even to his own ears. It won't bring Emma back. It won't give me those 3 years back. It won't undo the damage. It would be justice, Margaret said fiercely. It would be revenge, Daniel corrected. And it would land you in prison. Then who would take care of your kids? Your husband is destroying your life going to fix mine. Margaret's face crumpled. She sank into a chair and put her head in her hands. I just need someone to blame, she whispered. I need there to be a reason. I need there to be someone responsible. There is someone responsible, Sarah said quietly. She'd been so silent they'd almost forgotten she was there. And the police are going to find them. They have to. What if they don't? Margaret asked, looking up with red swollen eyes. What if this person gets away with it? What if we never know? Daniel couldn't answer that, because the same question was echoing in his own mind. 3 years. The trail was 3 years cold. Whoever did this had gotten away with it for this long. What were the chances they'd be caught now? His phone rang again. Detective Martinez. Mr. Thompson, I need to ask you one more question. It's important. What? Your wife Lisa. Do you know where she was living before the accident? What her daily routine was? She was living with me, at our house. Why? And she had access to your car keys. Daniel's blood ran cold. You can't possibly think Lisa did this. I need to explore all possibilities. Did your wife know how to work on cars? Her father was a mechanic. She grew up helping him. But she couldn't. I'm going to need to speak with her, Detective Martinez said. Do you have contact information for her in California? Daniel gave her Lisa's number with shaking hands. After he hung up, he looked at Margaret. They think Lisa did it, he said. They think my wife murdered our daughter. That's impossible, Margaret said immediately. Lisa loved Emma. She would never. But even as she said it, Daniel saw doubt flicker across her face. They were both remembering things now. Little things. Lisa's reaction when Emma was born, the way she'd seemed overwhelmed and distant sometimes. The times she'd complained about motherhood being harder than she expected. The way she'd blamed Daniel for everything after the accident with a hatred that seemed almost too intense, too focused. No, Daniel said firmly. No, Lisa wouldn't do this. She couldn't. But the seed was planted now, and it was growing. That night after Margaret finally went home to her own family, and Sophie was asleep upstairs, Daniel sat with Sarah by the fireplace. He'd started a fire without really thinking about it, something he hadn't done since Lisa left. The house needed warmth. Or maybe he did. Tell me about Lisa, Sarah said softly. What was she like before everything happened? Daniel stared into the flames. Beautiful. Ambitious. She had this way of lighting up a room when she walked in. Everyone loved her. I couldn't believe she chose me. Why wouldn't she choose you? Because I was boring, Daniel said with a bitter laugh. I was a computer programmer who played video games and read science fiction. She was this vibrant social creature who threw parties and knew everyone in town. My sister used to joke that Lisa married down. That's not true. Isn't it? Daniel turned to look at her. When Emma was born, Lisa was so excited. She decorated the nursery herself, threw this elaborate baby shower, posted 1,000 pictures on social media. But after Emma came home, something changed. She got quieter. Withdrawn. The doctor said it might be postpartum depression, but Lisa refused to talk about it. She said she was fine, just tired. A lot of new mothers struggle, Sarah said carefully. I know, but it was more than that. Sometimes I'd catch her just staring at Emma with this expression I couldn't read. Not love exactly, not hate either. Just this blank look like she was looking at a stranger's child. And when Emma would cry at night, Lisa would put a pillow over her head and make me deal with it. Every single time. Sarah was quiet listening. As Emma got older, it got better, Daniel continued. Lisa seemed to enjoy motherhood more once Emma could talk and interact. But there was always this distance, like she was performing the role of mother instead of actually being one. Does that make sense? Yes, Sarah said. It does. After the accident, after Emma died, I expected Lisa to fall apart, to be destroyed the way I was. But instead, she just got angry. So angry. At me, at the world, at everything. She screamed at me that I'd ruined her life, that I'd taken away her daughter and her future and her happiness. She said things I can't ever unhear. What kind of things? Daniel's hands clenched. She said maybe it was for the best. That Emma was gone and now we could start over. That we could move away and pretend it never happened and have a different life. She said that 2 weeks after Emma died. 2 weeks. Sarah's sharp intake of breath told him she understood the horror of those words. I thought she was just in shock, Daniel said. That grief was making her say crazy things. But when I told her I couldn't just move on, that I needed time to mourn, she got furious. She said I was being selfish, that I was wallowing, that I cared more about feeling guilty than about our marriage. And then she packed her bags and left. Filed for divorce a month later. Didn't even fight for anything. Just signed the papers and moved to California, and that was that. Did you ever talk to her again? After the divorce. Once. About 6 months ago. She called out of the blue, said she wanted to apologize. Said she'd been in therapy and realized she'd handled everything wrong. She cried and said she missed Emma and missed me and asked if we could ever find our way back to each other. What did you say? I said no, because by then I'd realized something. Lisa wasn't apologizing because she was sorry. She was apologizing because she was lonely. She'd moved to California thinking she'd start this amazing new life, but it didn't work out that way. She was alone and sad and wanted to come back. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't forgive her for leaving when I needed her most. So I told her to lose my number. And now Detective Martinez thinks she might have killed Emma. It's insane, Daniel said. Lisa would never do that. She might not have been the perfect mother, but she wouldn't murder her own child. That's not possible. But even as he said it, doubt was creeping in. Because now that he thought about it, really thought about it, there were other things. Strange things. Lisa insisting Emma ride her bike more often in those last few weeks, even though Emma was nervous about it. Lisa being the one who suggested Emma go stay with her grandmother that week while Daniel worked late. Lisa who'd been so calm at the hospital, so eerily composed while Emma died. Lisa who'd shown more anger than grief afterward. Daniel, Sarah said carefully, is there any chance Lisa didn't want to be a mother? That she felt trapped? I don't know, Daniel whispered. I thought I knew her, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I never did. His phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize. Stop asking questions or you'll regret it. Daniel's blood ran cold. He showed the message to Sarah. Oh my God, she breathed. Someone's threatening you. You need to call Detective Martinez right now. Daniel did, his hands shaking so badly he could barely dial. Martinez answered immediately. Someone just threatened me, Daniel said. A text from an unknown number. Forward it to me immediately. Don't respond to it. Don't delete it. I'm sending a patrol car to your house right now. What's happening? Why would someone threaten me now? Because we're getting close, Martinez said grimly. Because whoever did this knows we're investigating and they're scared. Mr. Thompson, I need you to be completely honest with me. Is there anyone staying with you right now? Anyone who could be in danger? Daniel looked at Sarah, who was watching him with frightened eyes. Yes, a woman and her daughter. They're staying in my guest room. Who are they? How do you know them? I just met them on Christmas Eve. They were homeless, and I offered them a place to stay. There was a long pause. Mr. Thompson, I need you to listen to me very carefully. You invited 2 strangers into your home right as we're reopening a murder investigation. Do you not see how dangerous that is? Sarah wouldn't hurt anyone, Daniel protested. She's running from an abusive ex. She's not a threat. How do you know that? Have you verified anything she's told you? Do you even know her last name? Daniel realized with a sinking feeling that he didn't. He knew Sarah and Sophie, but no last name, no background. Nothing except what Sarah had told him. She's not involved in this, Daniel said, but his voice wavered. She couldn't be. I'm sending officers to your location now. Don't let anyone leave. Do you understand? Martinez hung up. Daniel turned to Sarah, who'd gone pale. What did she say? Sarah asked. She's sending police. She wants to question you. Question me? Why? What did I do? Nothing. But they need to verify who you are. Make sure you're not connected to any of this. Connected to what? To Emma's death. Daniel, I didn't even know you 3 days ago. I know that. But they have to check. They have to rule everyone out. Sarah stood up abruptly. I should go. Sophie and I should leave right now before the police get here. Why? Daniel asked, and suddenly he was looking at her differently. Why would you run if you have nothing to hide? Sarah's face twisted with hurt. Because I'm running from Marcus. Because if the police get involved, if they put my name in their system, he might find us. He has friends in law enforcement. He said if I ever left him, he'd hunt me down and take Sophie away from me. So yes, Daniel, I want to run. Not because I'm guilty of anything, but because I'm terrified. Her voice broke on the last word, and Daniel felt like the worst person in the world for doubting her even for a second. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry. I didn't think about that. But Sarah, if you run now, it'll look suspicious. It'll make things worse. Just stay. Answer their questions. I'll be right there with you. You promise? You promise you won't let them take Sophie away from me? I promise, Daniel said, praying it was a promise he could keep. The police arrived 10 minutes later. 2 officers, young and professional, who asked Sarah and Daniel to sit in the living room while they took statements. Sophie woke up from the commotion and came downstairs crying, and Sarah held her daughter tightly while answering questions. Yes, her full name was Sarah Mitchell. Yes, she was from Texas. Yes, she was running from an abusive ex-husband named Marcus Mitchell. No, she'd never met Daniel before Christmas Eve. No, she had nothing to do with Emma Thompson's death. She didn't even know Emma Thompson had existed until Daniel told her. The officers took notes, made phone calls, ran background checks. It took 2 hours, 2 agonizing hours, where Sarah sat rigid with fear, and Daniel paced the room, and Sophie cried into her mother's shoulder. Finally, the officers stood up. You're clear, Ms. Mitchell. No warrants, no red flags. But we're going to need you to stay in town for the time being. Don't leave without informing Detective Martinez first. We're not going anywhere, Sarah said quietly. We have nowhere to go. After the police left, Sarah took Sophie back upstairs without a word to Daniel. He could hear Sophie crying through the ceiling, asking why the police were there, asking if the bad man had found them. Sarah's voice was soothing but strained, telling her daughter everything was okay when clearly nothing was okay. Daniel sat alone in the living room, staring at that threatening text message. Stop asking questions or you'll regret it. Who sent it? Who was watching him? Who was scared enough to threaten him? His phone rang again. This time, it was a number he recognized. Lisa. His finger hovered over the answer button. He hadn't spoken to his ex-wife in 6 months. Hearing her voice now, after everything Detective Martinez had implied, felt dangerous. But he needed to know. He needed to hear her deny it. He answered. Danny. Lisa's voice was shaky, tearful. The police just called me. They're asking about Emma's accident. They're saying someone tampered with your car. Danny. What's happening? I don't know, Daniel said coldly. You tell me. What? What are you talking about? They think someone murdered Emma. Someone who had access to my car. Someone who knew how to cut brake lines. Someone who might have wanted to hurt me or hurt Emma. Lisa was crying now. And you think that was me? Oh my God, Danny! You actually think I killed our daughter? Did you? The words came out harsher than he intended. Did you do it, Lisa? Did you want out of motherhood so badly that you killed our child? How dare you? Lisa choked out. How dare you even suggest that? I loved Emma. She was my baby. She was everything to me. Was she? Because you left pretty easily after she died. You moved across the country and started over like we never existed. I left because I couldn't breathe in that town anymore, Lisa screamed. Everyone staring at me with pity. Everyone whispering about the poor mother who lost her child. I couldn't take it, Danny. I couldn't live in that house where Emma's room was still exactly the same. I couldn't be married to you and see the guilt eating you alive every single day. So yes, I left. But that doesn't mean I didn't love her. It doesn't mean I killed her. Then who did? Daniel demanded. Who else had access to my car? Who else knew about my schedule that day? Who else? I don't know, Lisa sobbed. I don't know, Danny, but it wasn't me. I swear on Emma's grave it wasn't me. You have to believe me. Daniel wanted to believe her. God, he wanted to. But trust was a luxury he couldn't afford anymore. Where were you the night before the accident? He asked. Where were you that morning before I left for work? At home with you. Where else would I be? We had breakfast together. You left for the office around 8. I had showings all day. I was nowhere near your car. But you could have done it the night before, while I was sleeping. You could have gone out to the driveway and... Stop, Lisa said, her voice breaking. Please stop. I can't believe we're having this conversation. I can't believe you think I'm capable of this. I don't know what to think anymore, Daniel said. 3 years, Lisa. I spent 3 years hating myself, wanting to die, drowning in guilt. And now I find out someone did this on purpose. Someone murdered our daughter and let me think it was my fault. So yeah, I'm asking hard questions. I'm suspecting everyone. Even you. There was a long silence. Then Lisa said quietly, The police asked me about my father. Daniel's heart stopped. Your father? Why? Because he's a mechanic. Because he taught me everything I know about cars. Because they think if I did it, he might have helped me. Oh my God. He's 83 years old, Danny. He has dementia. He can barely remember my name. But they're going to question him anyway. They're going to drag him into this nightmare because you and the police think I'm a murderer. The pain in her voice was real. Daniel could hear it. But he could also hear something else. Defensiveness. Anger. The same anger she'd shown after Emma died. I have to go, Lisa said. The police are on their way to interview me. I just wanted you to hear it from me first. I didn't do this, Danny. Whatever else you think of me, whatever mistakes I made, I didn't kill our daughter. She hung up. Daniel sat there with the phone in his hand, his mind racing. Lisa's father was a mechanic. Lisa knew how to work on cars. Lisa had been at home the night before the accident. Lisa had access to his keys. Lisa had opportunity and means. But did she have motive? Sarah came back downstairs, her face drawn and exhausted. Sophie was finally asleep again, worn out from crying. I'm sorry, Daniel said immediately. I'm sorry you got dragged into this. I'm sorry the police scared you and Sophie. It's not your fault, Sarah said, but she didn't sit down next to him like she usually did. She stayed standing, keeping distance between them. Daniel, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. Do you trust me? Because back there when the detective asked about me, you hesitated. I saw it. You wondered if maybe I was involved somehow. If maybe I came into your life at a suspicious time. Sarah, it's okay if you did. I understand. Your life is falling apart, and you don't know who to trust. but I need to know where we stand. Because Sophie and we're vulnerable here. We're in your house, dependent on your kindness, caught up in your tragedy. And if you don't trust us, if you think we're somehow part of this, then we need to leave, right now, tonight." Daniel looked at her tired face, her defensive posture, the fear in her eyes. And he realized something. In 3 days, this woman and her daughter had become important to him. Their presence had woken something up inside him that he thought was dead. The sound of Sophie's laughter, the warmth of having people in his house again, the feeling of being needed and useful instead of just existing in guilt and grief. "I trust you," he said firmly. "I'm sorry I hesitated. I'm sorry I doubted you even for a second. But yes, Sarah, I trust you. You and Sophie have given me something I didn't think I'd ever have again. Hope, purpose, a reason to get up in the morning, so please don't leave. Please stay." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "You mean that?" Every word. She finally sat down next to him close enough that their shoulders touched. "Then I'm staying. We're staying. Through all of this, however bad it gets. You helped us when we had nothing. Now I'm going to help you find out who killed your daughter." "You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do," Sarah said fiercely. "Because that's what family does. And whether you realize it or not, that's what we're becoming. A family." The word hit Daniel like a physical blow. Family. He'd thought that word was dead to him, that he'd lost his family when Emma died and Lisa left. But here was Sarah offering it back to him. Broken and imperfect and strange but real. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for staying." They sat together in the quiet house, two damaged people finding unexpected comfort in each other's presence. Outside, the world was dark and cold and full of threats. But inside, just for this moment, they were safe. The next morning, Daniel woke to his phone ringing. Detective Martinez again. "We brought Lisa in for questioning," she said without preamble. She lawyered up immediately, refused to answer anything without her attorney present. "That doesn't mean she's guilty," Daniel said. "That's just smart." "Maybe. But here's what's interesting. We pulled her phone records from 3 years ago. The night before Emma's accident, Lisa made a call to her father. It lasted 47 minutes. She claims they were just talking about family stuff, but that's a long conversation for 11 o'clock at night." Daniel's chest tightened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe she called him for advice. Maybe she asked him how to disable a car's brakes without it being obvious. Maybe he walked her through it. Her father has dementia now. You can't question him about a phone call from 3 years ago. We're trying anyway. But Mr. Thompson, there's something else. Something you need to know. Lisa had a life insurance policy on Emma. $500,000. She took it out 6 months before the accident." The world tilted. Daniel gripped the phone so hard his knuckles went white. "What?" "It's not uncommon for parents to have life insurance on their children," Martinez said quickly. "But combined with everything else, it looks suspicious. Lisa collected that money 3 months after Emma died. She used it to buy a house in California and start her new life." "Oh my God," Daniel breathed. "Oh my God, she did it. She killed Emma for the insurance money." "We don't know that for certain. Not yet. But we're building a case. I wanted you to hear it from me before the media gets wind of it." "The media?" "This is going to be a big story, Mr. Thompson. Woman murders her own daughter for insurance money and frames her husband. The press is going to eat this up. You need to be prepared for that. You need to be ready for reporters camping on your lawn and photographers following you everywhere." Daniel thought about Sarah and Sophie upstairs, about the quiet life they were trying to build, about Marcus possibly seeing them on the news if this story went national. "Can you keep Sarah and Sophie out of it?" he asked urgently. "The woman and child staying with me. They're not part of this. They're running from something dangerous. If their faces end up on TV..." "I'll do my best," Martinez said, "but I can't promise anything. This is a murder investigation. Things are going to get messy." After she hung up, Daniel sat on the edge of his bed and tried to process everything. Lisa had taken out life insurance on Emma. Lisa had called her father the night before the accident. Lisa had left easily after Emma died and bought a new house with the insurance money. It all fit. It all made horrible, perfect sense. His wife had murdered their daughter for money and had let him suffer for 3 years thinking he was responsible. The rage that swept through Daniel then was unlike anything he'd ever felt. It was hot and violent and consuming. He wanted to hurt Lisa the way she'd hurt him, wanted to make her suffer the way he'd suffered, wanted to destroy her life the way she'd destroyed his. But underneath the rage was something worse. Grief. A fresh, raw grief for Emma all over again. Because if Lisa had killed her, that meant Emma's death wasn't a tragic accident. It was a betrayal. It was a mother choosing money over her child's life. And that was somehow even more unbearable than believing it was Daniel's fault. Sarah found him 20 minutes later sitting on the floor of Emma's room surrounded by his daughter's drawings and toys and memories. He was holding Emma's favorite stuffed elephant, the one she'd slept with every night, and he was crying so hard he couldn't breathe. Sarah didn't say anything. She just sat down next to him and held him while he fell apart. And when Sophie came in and asked why Mr. Daniel was sad, Sarah gently told her that sometimes grown-ups need to cry, that it's okay to be sad, that Mr. Daniel just needed some love right now. Sophie climbed into Daniel's lap and hugged him fiercely. "It's okay," she whispered, patting his cheek the way children do. "Mama says when we're sad, we should hug someone. So I'm hugging you." And Daniel held this little girl, who reminded him so much of Emma, and he thought about how life was strange and cruel, and occasionally merciful. How he'd lost his daughter, but found this makeshift family. How the worst night of his life had somehow led to the best thing that had happened to him in years. "Thank you, Sophie," he managed to say. "Thank you for the hug." "You're welcome," Sophie said seriously. "Do you feel better?" "A little bit," Daniel lied. Because he didn't feel better, he felt destroyed, but he also felt less alone. And sometimes, that's all you can ask for. The news broke that afternoon. Local woman suspected in daughter's murder. Lisa's face was all over the television, all over the internet, all over the news. Reporters descended on Daniel's house like vultures, shouting questions, taking pictures, demanding statements. Daniel didn't talk to any of them. He closed his curtains and locked his doors and tried to protect Sarah and Sophie from the chaos outside. But he knew it was only a matter of time before someone dug deeper, before someone found out about his house guests, before Marcus saw Sophie's face on TV and came to take her away. That night, as they huddled in the dark living room with the curtains drawn tight, Sarah took Daniel's hand. "Whatever happens," she said quietly, "whatever comes next, we face it together." "Okay. Okay," Daniel agreed. But neither of them knew just how much worse things were about to get. Neither of them knew that the truth about Emma's death was far more complicated than they imagined. Neither of them knew that the real killer was closer than they thought, and neither of them knew that tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow came with a knock on the door at 6 in the morning. Daniel stumbled downstairs exhausted from another sleepless night and opened it to find Detective Martinez standing on his porch with an expression he couldn't read. "We need to talk," she said. "Can I come in?" Daniel stepped aside to let her enter. Sarah appeared at the top of the stairs in her pajamas, her hair messy from sleep fear, immediately clouding her face at the sight of the detective. "It's okay," Daniel called up to her. "Just more questions." But it wasn't okay. He could tell from Martinez's face that something had changed, something big. They sat in the living room, and Martinez pulled out her tablet, bringing up a photo. "Do you recognize this woman?" Daniel looked at the image, a blonde woman in her 30s, attractive, smiling at the camera. "No. Should I?" "Her name is Jennifer Cole. She worked at your office 3 years ago, in the IT department. We had 50 people in that building. I didn't know everyone." "She knew you," Martinez said. "She was obsessed with you, actually. Her coworkers told us she talked about you constantly, followed you around, tried to get your attention, but you were married with a daughter, so you never noticed her." Daniel's stomach dropped. "What are you saying?" "Jennifer Cole called in the anonymous tip about your brake lines. We traced the burner phone back to her. When we brought her in for questioning yesterday, she confessed to everything." The room spun. Daniel gripped the arm of the couch to steady himself. "She confessed. She killed Emma." "Yes and no," Martinez said carefully. "She cut your brake lines. She admits to that. But she says she never meant to kill Emma. She says she was trying to kill you." The words hit Daniel like a physical blow. "What?" "Jennifer Cole was in love with you, had been for months. She had this fantasy that if you died, she could comfort your wife, become friends with Lisa, eventually step into your role in the family. She'd be the new mother to Emma, the new wife to your widow. It was delusional, but she believed it completely." Daniel felt like he was going to be sick. "She tried to kill me, and Emma died instead. She says she cut your brake lines the night before the accident. She knew your routine, knew you parked in the same spot every day at the office. She waited until everyone left and did it in the parking lot. But she didn't know you were picking up Emma that day. She thought you'd be driving alone. When she heard about the accident, heard that Emma was dead, she had a complete breakdown. Left town the next day. Changed her name, tried to disappear." "Then why come forward now?" Daniel demanded. "Why confess after 3 years?" Martinez hesitated. "Because she saw the news about Lisa being investigated. And she couldn't let an innocent woman go to prison for something she did. So she called in the tip and then turned herself in." Sarah had come down the stairs during this conversation and was standing in the doorway, her hand over her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Oh my God. Daniel." Daniel couldn't speak, couldn't think. A stranger had tried to murder him out of some twisted delusion, and Emma had died instead. His daughter was collateral damage in someone else's sick fantasy. "Is Lisa being released?" he finally managed to ask. "Yes. The charges against her are being dropped. Her attorney is handling it now. She's free to go." The insurance policy was just an insurance policy. Lots of parents have them. It only looked suspicious because we were building a case around her. But Jennifer Cole's confession changes everything. Lisa didn't kill Emma. She's innocent." Daniel put his head in his hands. He'd accused his ex-wife of murdering their daughter. He'd believed she was capable of that horror, and she was innocent. She'd lost Emma, too grieved Emma too, and then had to endure her ex-husband accusing her of being a killer. "I need to call her," Daniel said. "I need to apologize." "She knows," Martinez said gently. "I told her about your suspicions, and she understands. This has been a nightmare for everyone involved. What happens to Jennifer Cole now?" "She's being charged with voluntary manslaughter. She'll go to prison for a long time. But it won't be murder, because she didn't intend to kill Emma. Just you." The casual way Martinez said those words made Daniel want to scream. Just you. Like his life had been worthless. Like someone trying to kill him was somehow less terrible than them killing Emma on purpose. "Can I see her?" Daniel asked suddenly. "Can I talk to her? I need to understand. I need to hear it from her." Martinez frowned. "That's not usually how this works. Please. I need to look her in the eye. I need to know why. Why my daughter had to die because of her delusions." After a long moment, Martinez nodded. "I'll arrange it. But Mr. Thompson, I have to warn you, Jennifer Cole is not well. She's been in and out of psychiatric facilities for years. She's not the person you're expecting to meet." Daniel didn't care. He needed answers. He needed closure. He needed to confront the person who'd actually killed his daughter. The meeting was arranged for later that afternoon. Sarah insisted on coming with him, leaving Sophie with Margaret, who'd rushed over as soon as she heard the news. They drove to the county jail in silence, Daniel's hands shaking on the steering wheel. Jennifer Cole was brought into the visiting room in handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit. She was thinner than in her photo, with dark circles under her eyes and a nervous energy that made her hands twitch constantly. When she saw Daniel, Her face crumpled. "I'm so sorry," she said immediately, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for Emma to die. I never meant for any of this to happen." Daniel stared at this stranger who'd destroyed his life. "Why?" he asked. His voice sounded hollow. "Why did you do it?" "Because I loved you," Jennifer said, like it was obvious, like it was a reasonable explanation. "I loved you so much. I watched you every day at work, the way you smiled, the way you talked about your daughter, the way you were so kind to everyone. I knew we were meant to be together. I knew if I could just get you to see me, to really see me, you'd love me too." "I didn't even know you existed," Daniel said. "I know. That's why I had to do something drastic. I thought if you got hurt, if you needed help, I could be there for you. I could take care of you, and then you'd see how perfect we were together. So you tried to kill me." "I didn't think of it that way," Jennifer said desperately. "I just thought you'd have an accident, get injured, need someone. But then Emma was in the car and I saw the news and I realized what I'd done and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't live with myself. I left town that night, changed my name to Jennifer Hartley, moved to Oregon, got therapy, got medication, tried to become a different person." "But you're not a different person," Daniel said harshly. "You're the same person who murdered a 6-year-old child." "It was an accident," Jennifer sobbed. "I never meant to hurt Emma. I loved Emma. I used to watch videos of her on your social media. She was so beautiful, so perfect. She was supposed to be my daughter someday, our daughter." The delusion in her words was staggering. Sarah reached under the table and took Daniel's hand, grounding him. "Do you have any idea what you did to me?" Daniel asked, his voice breaking. "I thought I killed my daughter. I thought it was my fault. I spent 3 years wanting to die. 3 years hating myself. 3 years destroyed by guilt. And it was you. It was all you." "I know," Jennifer whispered. "That's why I came forward. I couldn't let you suffer anymore. I couldn't let Lisa go to prison. I had to tell the truth, even though I knew it meant spending the rest of my life in jail. Because you deserve to know it wasn't your fault. You deserve to be free of that guilt." "Free?" Daniel laughed bitterly. "You think I'm free now? My daughter is still dead. My wife still left me. My life is still destroyed. The only difference is now I know it was you instead of me. How is that freedom?" Jennifer didn't have an answer. She just cried, her whole body shaking with sobs. Daniel stood up abruptly. "I can't be here. I can't look at you anymore." "Wait!" Jennifer called out. "Please, I need you to know something. The text message. The one from your boss that came through right before the accident. I sent that." Daniel froze. "What?" "I hacked into his email. Sent you a message I knew you'd check while driving. I wanted the police to think you were distracted. I wanted it to look like an accident caused by you, not by the brakes failing. That way no one would investigate. No one would look at the car too closely. It was supposed to be perfect." The room was spinning again. Every detail of that day, every moment Daniel had replayed in his mind 1,000 times, had been orchestrated by this woman. The text, the brake failure, Emma's death, all of it planned, all of it calculated. "You're a monster," Sarah said from beside him. Her voice was cold as ice. "You're not sick. You're not delusional. You're evil. And I hope you rot in that prison cell for the rest of your miserable life." Jennifer's face twisted with rage. "You don't know anything about me. You don't know what it's like to love someone so much it consumes you. You don't know what it's like to be invisible, to be nothing, to be so desperate for connection that you do anything for it." "You're right," Sarah said. "I don't know what that's like, because I'm not insane. Come on, Daniel, let's go." They left Jennifer Cole sobbing in the visiting room. Outside in the parking lot, Daniel collapsed against the car and finally let himself break down completely. Not the quiet tears he'd cried before. This was something deeper. This was 3 years of agony pouring out all at once. Sarah held him and let him scream. Let him rage. Let him grieve. And when he was finally empty, when there were no more tears left, she helped him into the passenger seat and drove them home. The media storm intensified after Jennifer's confession. The story had everything reporters loved: obsession, murder, a tragic twist. Daniel's phone rang constantly with interview requests. Producers wanted him on talk shows. Publishers wanted him to write a book. Everyone wanted a piece of his pain. He ignored all of it. Instead, he did something he should have done 3 years ago. He went to Lisa. She was staying at a hotel downtown, preparing to fly back to California. When she opened the door and saw him standing there, her face went pale. "Danny," she whispered. "Can we talk?" He asked. "Please, just for a few minutes." Lisa let him in. Her hotel room was small and impersonal, her suitcase half-packed on the bed. She looked older than he remembered, tired, worn down by everything that had happened. "I'm sorry," Daniel said before she could speak. "I'm so sorry, Lisa. I thought you killed her. I actually believed you were capable of murdering our daughter. I don't know how to apologize for that. I don't know how to make that right." Lisa's eyes filled with tears. "I thought you killed her too," she said quietly. "That's why I left. Not because I blamed you for texting while driving, but because I believed you'd been careless and that carelessness killed Emma. I couldn't forgive that. I couldn't stay married to someone who'd taken our daughter from us." "But neither of us did it," Daniel said. "We both spent 3 years hating each other, blaming each other, when all along it was some stranger, some sick woman who destroyed our family because of a fantasy." "I know," Lisa said. She sat down on the edge of the bed, her shoulders slumped. "The detective told me everything. About Jennifer Cole, about the brake lines, about the text message. It's so insane I can barely process it." "Me neither." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Lisa looked up at him. "I wasn't a good mother," she said. "I need you to know that. I need to say it out loud. I loved Emma, but I wasn't good at being her mom. I was selfish. I resented how much time she took, how much energy, how much of myself I had to give up, and I felt guilty about that every single day." "Lisa." "No, let me finish. When Emma died, part of me felt relief. Not because I wanted her dead, God, never that, but because the pressure was gone. The constant feeling of failing, the guilt of not being the perfect mother everyone expected me to be. And then I felt guilty about feeling relieved, and it all became this horrible spiral. So I left, I ran away, and I convinced myself it was because of you, because of your negligence, when really, it was because I couldn't face my own failures." Daniel didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to comfort her. Part of him wanted to be angry. Part of him just felt sad for both of them. "We were both broken," he said finally. "We both failed in our own ways, but Emma loved us anyway. That's what kids do. They love their parents unconditionally, even when we don't deserve it." "I miss her so much," Lisa sobbed. "I miss my baby so much." "Me too." They cried together for the first time in 3 years, cried for Emma, cried for their broken marriage, cried for all the time they'd wasted hating each other instead of grieving together. "I'm getting help," Lisa said when she could speak again. "Real help. Therapy twice a week. Medication for depression. I'm trying to become the person I should have been when Emma was alive." "That's good," Daniel said. "That's really good. What about you? Are you okay?" Daniel thought about Sarah and Sophie, about the life he was building with them, about how grief and healing looked different than he'd expected. "I'm getting there," he said. "I have people helping me. I'm not alone anymore." "The woman the police mentioned, Sarah, is she important to you?" "Yes," Daniel admitted. "I know it's fast. I know it's strange. But she and her daughter, they've given me something to live for again." Lisa smiled sadly. "I'm glad. You deserve to be happy, Danny. You deserve to live again." So do you. Lisa walked him to the door. Before he left, she hugged him tightly. Take care of yourself, she said. And Danny, I forgive you. For everything. I know there's nothing to forgive, but I'm saying it anyway. I forgive you. I forgive you too, Daniel said. They parted as friends instead of enemies. It wasn't closure exactly. Emma was still dead. Their marriage was still over. The pain was still there, but it was different now. Softer somehow, less sharp. When Daniel got home, he found Sarah and Sophie in Emma's room. Sarah was helping Sophie look through Emma's old toys, and Sophie was clutching Emma's stuffed elephant. Is this okay? Sarah asked immediately, guilt crossing her face. I should have asked first. Sophie wanted to see Emma's things, and I thought maybe it was time, but if you're not ready... It's okay, Daniel said. And he meant it. Emma would have wanted her toys to be played with. She would have wanted another little girl to love them. Sophie looked up at him with solemn eyes. Mr. Daniel is your daughter in heaven. Yes, Daniel said. She is. Then she's with my grandpa, Sophie said. Mama says grandpa is in heaven too. Maybe they're friends now. Maybe Emma is teaching him how to draw butterflies like she liked to do. The image made Daniel's chest tight. Emma teaching Sophie's grandfather to draw. Two people who'd never met in life finding each other in death. It was a nice thought. A comforting thought. Maybe they are, Daniel agreed. That night after Sophie went to bed, Daniel and Sarah sat by the fireplace again. It had become their ritual. This quiet time together when the day was done, and they could just be. Detective Martinez called me today, Sarah said. She said Marcus has been located in Texas. The police there are keeping an eye on him. He doesn't know where we are. We're safe. That's good. That's really good. She also said we can stay here as long as we need. That you've been cleared of any suspicion that I'm not a person of interest, that we're free to just live our lives. Then stay, Daniel said. Don't just stay until you find something else. Stay because you want to. Stay because this is your home now, yours and Sophie's. Sarah looked at him with tears in her eyes. Daniel, are you asking us to move in like permanently? Yes, I know it's crazy. I know we barely know each other. But Sarah, you and Sophie have saved me. You've given me a reason to live again. You've filled this house with life and laughter and hope. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to be alone again. We're not a replacement for Emma, Sarah said carefully. Sophie and I, we can't fill that hole in your heart. I know, and I'm not asking you to. Emma will always be my daughter, always be loved, always be missed. But that doesn't mean I can't build something new, something different, something that honors her memory by choosing to live fully instead of just surviving. Sarah was crying now. Are you sure? Are you absolutely sure this is what you want? I've never been more sure of anything. Sarah kissed him then, soft and gentle and full of promise. It was the first kiss either of them had shared with anyone in years. It was terrifying and beautiful and right. We'll stay, Sarah whispered against his lips. We'll stay, and we'll build a life here with you. The three of us together. The four of us, Daniel corrected. Emma's still part of this family. Always will be. The four of us, Sarah agreed. The weeks that followed were not easy. There were still hard days. Days when Daniel woke up and the grief was overwhelming. Days when Sarah had nightmares about Marcus finding them. Days when Sophie cried for reasons she couldn't explain. But there were also good days. Days when they laughed together. Days when they made new memories. Days when the house felt like a home again. Margaret came to visit often, bringing her kids to play with Sophie. She'd been skeptical at first about Sarah, worried Daniel was rushing into something, but she came to love Sarah and Sophie as Daniel did. They became part of the extended family. Daniel took Sophie to the park where he used to take Emma, pushed her on the same swings, watched her climb the same play structure, and instead of it hurting, it felt like healing. Like Emma's spirit was still there, still present, blessing this new chapter. Sarah got a job at the local hospital, working as a nurse again. She was good at it, as good as she'd said. She came home tired, but fulfilled, talking about her patients, about making a difference. She was rebuilding herself piece by piece. And Daniel started living again. Really living. Not just existing in guilt and grief. He joined a support group for parents who'd lost children. He started volunteering at the children's hospital where Emma had died, reading to sick kids, offering comfort to scared parents. He took the worst experience of his life and tried to make something meaningful from it. On the 1-year anniversary of finding Sarah and Sophie in that parking lot, Daniel took them back to the same grocery store. It was late at night, cold and quiet, just like that first night. "This is where we met," he told Sophie, who was now 7 years old and thriving in her new school. "This is where everything changed." "Because you stopped," Sophie said wisely. "Mama says most people drove by us. But you stopped. You helped us when you didn't have to." "You helped me too," Daniel said. "More than you know." They stood in that parking lot, the three of them, and Daniel thought about fate and chance and divine intervention. How one decision, one moment of choosing to stop instead of drive away, had saved 3 lives. His, Sarah's, and Sophie's. "Can we go to Emma's grave?" Sophie asked. "I want to tell her thank you." "Thank you for what?" Daniel asked gently. "For sharing her daddy with me. For letting me live in her house and play with her toys. I think she was really nice. I wish I could have met her." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." They drove to the cemetery, something Daniel did every week now, without the crippling pain it used to cause. Emma's headstone was simple. Emma Thompson, beloved daughter, forever 6, forever loved. Sophie placed flowers on the grave ones she'd picked out herself. "Hi, Emma," she said seriously. "I'm Sophie. I live in your house now with your daddy and my mama. Your daddy is really nice. He makes really good pancakes. I hope that's okay with you. I promise I'm taking good care of him." Daniel had to look away, his chest so tight he couldn't breathe. Sarah took his hand and squeezed. "I think Emma would love you," Sarah told Sophie. "I think she's happy her daddy found us. Happy he's not alone anymore." "I know she is," Sophie said with the certainty only children possess. "She told me." "She told you?" Daniel asked. "In a dream. She came to visit me and said thank you for making her daddy smile again. She said she has to go now, but she's glad we're here. She said we're supposed to be a family." Daniel knelt down and pulled Sophie into a hug, crying openly now. Sarah wrapped her arms around both of them. And there in that cemetery, standing over Emma's grave, they became something new. Not a replacement for what was lost, but something precious in its own right. A family born from tragedy, built on grief and hope, held together by love. Later that night, after Sophie was asleep, Daniel stood in Emma's room for the last time. Sarah had slowly, gently been converting it into Sophie's room. Emma's drawings were still on the walls, her stuffed elephant still on the bed. But Sophie's clothes were in the closet now. Sophie's books on the shelf. It was a blending of past and present, of memory and new life. "Are you okay with this?" Sarah asked from the doorway. "We can slow down. We can wait." "No," Daniel said. "This is right. Emma would want her room to be used. She would want another little girl to be happy here. This isn't erasing her. This is honoring her." He picked up one of Emma's drawings from the desk. A butterfly, colorful and bright with big eyes and a smiling face. He'd forgotten about this one. Emma had drawn it the week before she died. "I'm going to frame this," Daniel said. "Hang it in the living room where we can all see it. Emma's butterfly watching over our family." "Our family," Sarah repeated softly. "I like the sound of that." "Me too." They stood together in the room that held so much pain and so much love, and Daniel realized something profound. He'd spent 3 years thinking he couldn't survive Emma's death, thinking guilt would destroy him, thinking he deserved to suffer forever. But life had other plans. Life had brought him Sarah on a cold Christmas Eve. Had brought him Sophie, with her trusting eyes and gentle heart. Had brought him back from the edge of destruction and shown him that healing was possible. Emma's death would always be the worst thing that ever happened to him. Jennifer Cole's delusion would always be unforgivable. The 3 years of misplaced guilt would always be time he couldn't get back. But from that darkness had come light. From that tragedy had come hope. From that ending had come a new beginning. "I love you," Daniel said to Sarah. The first time he'd said it. The first time he'd let himself feel it. "I love you too," Sarah said. "Both of you. You and Emma. Past and present together." "Past and present together," Daniel agreed. And in that moment, standing in his dead daughter's room, with the woman who'd saved his life, Daniel finally understood what Emma would have wanted for him. Not suffering, not guilt, not endless grief. She would have wanted him to live, to love, to find joy again. She would have wanted him to be happy. And for the first time in 3 years, Daniel was.